Hello, and welcome to the BYU Family History webinar series. I'm Marin, and I'll be your host for this webinar. We'd love to know where you're listening from and how you heard about today's webinar. You can enter that into the polls on the left of the screen. Our next webinar will be on Wednesday, July 25th at 3 p.m. We'll be hearing from James Tanner about online books, family history you may be missing. For today's webinar, we are pleased to hear from Joe Price, who will be giving a presentation entitled Community Reconstitution. Joe Price is a professor of economics at Brigham Young University, a fellow of the Wheatley Institution, and the director of the BYU Record Linking Lab. He and his wife, Emily, are the parents of 7 children. And as we get the presentation set up, we'll just bring your attention over to the questions and group discussion on the side of the screen. If you have any questions, that'll go in those boxes over there. And if everything is ready, we'll turn it over to Joe.
Thanks, Marin. So I'm going to be talking today about an exciting way that you can work with your community to try to connect together everyone that was living in the community in the past, maybe say 1940 census or 1900 census or in the cemetery records. And this project was prompted by a question that we had in which we wondered what fraction of people are already on the tree. So if you take people living in a particular county in the 1900 census, you might ask, well, how many of those people are already on the tree? So I want you to take a moment and think about what that number is, and we'll come back to it in just a little bit. But one question is, well, how many people should there be on the tree? So for the US, if you think about people who lived in the US between 1850 and 1940, there should be about 217 million people. The way you get this is in the 1850 census, there was 23 million people living in the United States. In 1860, it had gone up to 31 million, but of those, 10.9 were new additions to the population, new births or immigrants. And so you can actually add up the new additions to the US population each year, and you get 217 million people that should be on the tree. So one thing we're doing with Family Search right now is creating a census-based tree. Many of you are probably familiar with working with a family tree where you connect together your relatives and your ancestors and their descendants. A record-based tree connects together people in records. So what I would do is I would find your grandpa in the 1940 census, and then I would find maybe his parents in the 1920 census, and we could basically connect families and people together across censuses. And then the nice thing is that a record-based tree can interact with the family tree in ways that will help you know what fraction of that underlying population is already on the tree. So this is just a way that we structure the census tree. In every record, we can observe individuals and their parents in the record. And so you've seen that first group at the top. You can see that an arc indicates a person in a record, and then we know the arc of their parent. So we can reconstruct families within records. Now on the family tree, we have PIDs. Those are the little 7-digit unique identifiers. And on the family tree, we can also see people with their parents. And we can actually use both the record tree and the family tree then to create a crosswalk between people on the tree and people on the records. And then you can start to stitch these together to create a fully complete record-based tree. And this opens up some really neat opportunities because then you can start to identify records that add new people to the tree. So this is the source linker view that you're familiar with on Family Search. And on the left is the family as it shows up in the record, and on the right is the family as it shows up on the family tree. And you can see that the parents line up, and Myrtle and Dorothy line up very well. So we know that this is a record we would want to attach. But then we also notice that we have a couple children in the record that aren't on the tree. And so Family Search refers to these as golden hints. We call them tree extending hints, but these are record hints that actually allow us to grow the family tree. And so we're working to try to identify as many of these as possible and allow people to use these to grow the tree and have new opportunities to learn more about their family. And so you can kind of see how this works, where we have here at the top we have a record, down at the bottom we have the tree, and you can see we can use the record to fill in people on the tree. And here's another example where Elmo Updike is listed here with his wife and children on the family tree, he doesn't have a spouse, and so this record could allow us then to expand his family by adding in his spouse and children. And here's just another example where we found a mother-in-law, and so we can add in Viola Bishop's mother to the family tree because she didn't have a parent before. Another thing that can often happen is that we will have, we'll identify a possible duplicate. So we will actually find a record that's attached to a person, but then we'll find another person that it should be attached to. And so in this case, Robert E. Fee shows up twice on the tree, and so we would want to merge those duplicates and kind of connect this family back together. Sometimes when we do that with the possible duplicates, we will both merge a person together, but we'll also find new information on the record. So in this case, we would merge William V. Ritter back, merge the two entities for William V. Ritter. We'd also be able to add his 3 children to the family tree. So the hope here is to both tighten the tree by merging duplicates, but also expand the tree by adding new people that we have in the records. So when we were trying to do this, so the things I just described to you is a census tree we're creating for the entire United States. But we also want to help people focus on their local community and create a community tree. And the amazing thing about this is that every community has fantastic records at their public library or their genealogical society or historical society that people outside the county might not be able to access or know about. And so what we can do is we can try to create community trees to ensure that everyone from our community is on the family tree, and then we can start to attach the important and rich records that we have available to us nearby. We've also found that by working on a community all at once and having others help us with this as well, we can actually break through traditional dead ends by coming at it from both directions. So you'll start to see as you work through the records of a particular community, you'll start to see how the families are interconnected, how the daughter of one family becomes the daughter-in-law of another family, and you start to tighten the tree and make it possible for people in that community to see how they're linked to each other on the family tree. So let me talk about a pilot we did in Knox County, Ohio. And with any of these community reconstitution projects, you need to decide what you want your base sample to be. So we decided to use the 28,000 people who were living in Knox County in the 1900 census. We chose Knox County because we were working on a project with Ohio data as part of a project with the University of Michigan, and then Knox County happened to be the median-sized county in the state. So the first thing we did is we ran a program to check to see which of those people were already on the family tree. And we found about 30% of those people. And so you can start to think about what your answer was earlier. I asked you like what fraction of the U.S. population was on the tree. If you said 10%, then at least in terms of this county, you're quite a bit low. But what was amazing is then we started to add the other people to the family tree. And then we worked with volunteers to attach sources and expand out until we connected with someone already on the tree. And along the way, we fixed misspelled names, incorrect dates, and merged any duplicates. And we actually found that by working on the whole county at once, we were able to break through the typical barriers by coming at them from both directions. We could also split the work into microtasks and allow volunteers of all ages to help us out. So some tasks like death dates are much easier. Finding someone's maiden name is relatively easy, but then other things, finding someone's parents or resolving a knot is something that you might want to leave to more advanced volunteers. And so the idea is that by working together as a group, we can actually split the work up in ways that allows everyone to match their skill with the challenge. And so the nice thing now is that everyone from Knox County, Ohio, from the 1900 census is now on the tree. They've been connected together, and this makes it easy to attract community members to come use the family tree. So a couple metrics of success for your own community reconstitution project is what fraction of the target population is on the tree. And ultimately what we're aiming for is to try to get the entire population for the town or a particular record collection onto the tree. We also want to measure quality is, are the family linkages and other information for that person correct? And then does the quality improve over time? So we've done some analysis of this, and we find that about 95% of the edits that were made in this Knox County, Ohio, prior to us working on it were correct. And of those that were incorrect, many were fixed within a short period of time. So the crowdsourcing model on the family tree is actually a really powerful way to tap into the efforts of a lot of people. And it has a way of cleaning itself by having people collaborate. And then the other question is about duplication. So what fraction of individuals show up multiple times in the tree? So you both want to improve the coverage and then reduce the duplication of your target population. So let's talk now about the coverage rate. So prior to starting this project, we asked a lot of people to predict what fraction of the Knox population in 1900 were already on the family tree. This is the coverage rate. The answers varied a lot, but they were sometimes as low as 5% or 10% or 20%. I mentioned earlier that our initial search found about 30% of the people. But what we could do is once we've added everyone to the tree and merged duplicates and added sources and found people, we could actually look through the history of each person to see when they were first added to the tree. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the fraction of people who were on the family tree prior to October 2013. And I imagine this number is going to surprise you a bit. But in this case, we found that 84% of the individuals living in Knox County were already on the family tree. Many of them were unconnected, so they might have been a child with their parents. But what we found is that by connecting them all together, most of the people were already there. And of those that weren't on the tree, they were often roomers, boarders, servants, widows, people that were not connected to other family members and are in fact pretty hard to connect to other parts of the tree. So you might be saying, well, maybe Ohio is an outlier. Ohio has fantastic records. Lots of people have worked on Ohio records, so maybe the 84% is an outlier. So what we did is we randomly chose a bunch of other counties around the United States, and then we would randomly choose 100 people who were living in the county in 1900, and then we check to see if they're on the family tree using our automated approach. And if not, we add them to the tree and then keep expanding out until we connect with someone already on the family tree. So this next slide is going to show you the fraction of people already on the family tree for 12 counties, and the fraction of people who aren't on the tree but have a close relative on the tree, so a spouse, parent, or child. So here I've sorted them from highest to lowest among this random sample. So you can see for Knox, Kentucky, 48% of the people were already on the tree in 2012. Another 18 percentage points were added between 2013 and 2017. Another 18 percentage points have a close relative on the tree, so a parent on the tree, a sibling on the tree, a spouse on the tree. So what this means is that 84% of the population of Knox, Kentucky is either on the tree or just one hop away from being on the tree. And you can see that we also have really high rates for Plymouth, Iowa, and Frederick, Maryland. And then you start to move down towards the bottom and you see states like Nevada, Wyoming, Louisiana that have lower coverage rates. But what's amazing is even in the worst coverage rate states, the numbers I'm showing you are probably higher than many of you guessed to begin with. So I think what happens is that people have a perception of how complete the tree is that doesn't fully realize just how amazing it is, and that in fact the coverage rates are much higher than I think almost anyone can imagine. And this is important because the willingness of people to use the family tree both in and out of the church will hinge largely on how good they think it is. And our impression is that people don't realize just how good the family tree is right now. And then the hope is that these community reconstitution projects can actually take a community and make it even better than what we observe here. Now, one thing we do note is that there are big differences in the coverage rate by race and also based on whether or not you're connected to a family. So one of the reasons that some counties have a lower coverage rate is because they have a high fraction of the population that's African American. And so if you look at Cumberland, North Carolina, about half the population is African American. And of the African Americans, 18% are on the tree, whereas among the whites, it's about 84%. So this is something we're working on as a lab to try to improve the coverage rate of African Americans on the tree. And if that's something you're interested in, reach out to us. We'd love to have you help with those things. The other thing is you can look in Washoe, Nevada, 73% of people are connected to a family, 24% aren't. And so you see the coverage rates tend to be much higher for people that are connected to a family than people who aren't. And people who aren't connected to family are generally roomers, boarders, and other people without a family member nearby. So let's talk about some of the benefits of doing a community reconstitution project. Is you're going to become very familiar with the records of that community. It also allows you to employ non-traditional records. You can use county histories, funeral home records, yearbooks, and you'll start to see the patterns in how families are connected. You'll break through dead ends by coming at them from both directions. It also creates a natural goal to work towards, which can motivate lots of effort and create natural opportunities to work with others. And it also makes some of the features on the Family Search app or websites like Relative Finder really fantastic, because once the community is all connected together, you can do things like relatives around me, or find my relationship, and you'll start to discover that you're actually more closely related to your neighbors than you would have ever imagined. So how to get started is you need to pick a place, a time period, and a record collection. So in the example I gave you, we took Knox County 1900 census, but you could focus on a specific town. So you could have done Mount Vernon, Ohio, or we're working with a group in Laredo, Texas. And what you want to do then is identify which people on your list are already on the family tree. And the BYU Record Linking Lab can help automate this process for you. Then what you can do is add the people who aren't already on the family tree to the family tree, and then start to add in additional family members and attach sources until you connect to someone who's already on the tree. And you can actually split the project into smaller pieces and enlist others to help. I think this would be a fantastic Eagle project. I think it would be a fantastic Young Women's Personal Progress. I think citizenship and community involves a service requirement. There's a lot of opportunities for us to tap youth into service, and this would be a fantastic service project that they could use to connect with the community and involve others in helping grow the family tree. And so we can create these Google Sheets to split it into smaller pieces, break it into smaller tasks, such as finding a death date or finding a maiden name. And so we can help kind of give you the tools to do that. Let me talk about a recent pilot we're doing in Canby, Oregon. So my parents live in Canby, Oregon, and they're going to be helping with a family history booth at the Clackamas County Fair. And I thought it would be nice if people who visit the booth could see how they're related to other people in the community. Maybe they could bring a friend to the booth and see how they're related. We also wanted them to be able to tap into yearbook photos and other records to enrich their experience for a new user. So the first thing we did is we just checked to see which records are available for Oregon. There was about 67 record collections. The largest are Find a Grave, the Oregon Death Index, and the 1940 census. So we checked in the 1940 census. There was 1,800 people living in Canby, Oregon. That's about 20 people per page, 92 pages. And you could actually split this work up by page across volunteers, and each person could just focus on one page. And so this is a screenshot of one of those pages from the 1940 census. And you can see this little pedigree icon over here that I've marked with a red box that indicates that that person is already on the tree. So L.N.C. Stevenson is already on the tree. The person right above her, Richard L. Stevenson, is not on the tree. Now, one reason that Richard L. Stevenson is not on the tree is he was born in 1934. And so we're not actually sure if he's still alive or not. And so for privacy reasons, we'd be cautious about adding him to the tree. But other records then that can help in terms of privacy is you can focus on people that you know are deceased. And so you can actually look at the cemetery records in your town. So Canby, Oregon has 7 cemeteries on Find a Grave. And the largest is Zion Memorial. It has 20 gravestones per page, 340 pages. And so you can start to think about how to split up the work across different people. And so this is a typical Find a Grave record. You would see a list of people in the cemetery. If you click on one of those links, you'll see more information about the person. You'll see information about when they were born, where they were born, when they died, where they died, and you'll often see family members. So in this case, we were able to find this person on the tree pretty easily, and you can see that the information lines up really well. Another fantastic resource is high school yearbooks. So we were curious about which of the high school yearbooks were available from Canby, Oregon. So Ancestry.com has a fantastic high school yearbook collection, and so we were able to search specifically for the years they had high school yearbooks for Canby High School. And so we were able to go and connect these people to the family tree. And the nice thing about this is that there's a picture, and so once people know about the high school resource, they can go and see a picture of their parents or grandparents. And so we set up a sheet where we could tag the PIDs of each person. And you could imagine then possibly when people come to the booth, we could check to see if they know that their parents went to Canby High School, we could check to see what the PID is for them and show them, take them directly to the tree to show something about their ancestry. You can also just get really creative in the records you include. Historical societies have fantastic records. Libraries often have a collection of local history that would be great to use. The local newspaper often has tons of really fantastic information about births, marriages, deaths, graduation, other events in people's lives. The local funeral home might have some records. Schools have fantastic records, including newsletters and sports photos and graduation programs. There's also some efforts to do oral histories, and that can be something you can tap into. And then many cities have access to photo collections, and these photo collections are often untagged, and so this can be a really fantastic service project to try to figure out who it is in the photo and try to link them to people on the tree. And so we're actually going to be at the county fair in Clackamas County, which is in Oregon, where Canby is. And we're really excited to see how people react to having the opportunity to find out who's on their, which of their ancestors are on the family tree already, and being able to see pictures and other memories about their family members. So one question is, will working on family history of your community take away from time working on your own family? So one answer to this is that you should probably pick a community that your family was part of. So I have family members in Knox County, Ohio. Probably even better for me would be Bedford County, Virginia, where I have a lot of family members. The other way is to view this as just a form of service that you'll do to help others. And the truth is you'll actually come to love the people in that community almost as much as you do your family. You really, as you start to connect those records together and learn more about the people, you can't but help to start to love them. You can also, anytime you're working on any person on the tree, you can click View My Relationship. And you'll be surprised how often someone you're working on as part of a community project turns out to be one of your cousins, especially if you're working in a community where you do have family. And then I think the one thing I would share is just two analogies. One is the haystack analogy, and that I think a lot of times in family history, we're looking for needles in haystacks, but we might not even know that the haystack exists. So we're basically searching across haystacks and then searching for needles in haystacks. I think what the community approach does is you basically find the haystack that's sitting nearest to you. You grab all the needles from that haystack, you stick those needles on the family tree, and then other people who come along will see those needles and it'll draw them to the resources that you have in your local community. This is very similar to what we did with indexing. Prior to indexing, you'd basically, each person would have to look through the microfilm hoping to find someone that they were related to. With indexing, what you do is you index the records for a particular data collection, and then it becomes searchable to other people. So the indexing you do might not actually directly help your ancestors, but if everyone participates in indexing, then everyone gets the benefit. And so that's how we view this community reconstitution program. And so again, if you want to check your relationship, you can just click View My Relationship, or if you're on the app, you can hit View My Relationship. And then often you'll discover that you're related to the person. And so you can actually turn this into a potential temple opportunity experience by then looking at one of your ancestors born in the 1700s and then looking at the descendants of that person. So just a little bit about the BYU Record Linking Lab. We're willing to help you with these community reconstitution projects. We have over 100 undergraduate research assistants where we provide a blend of machine learning, family history, and economics. What we've discovered is there's some groups doing machine learning without the family history part, and some people doing the family history without the machine learning part. And we feel that actually the most efficient use of our time and resources is to try to blend these two together. And we can help you set up a community reconstitution project. And this would actually be a fantastic way to connect with your community. And it could be a great Eagle project or youth service activity. And so I've included a link here to our Facebook page, and I've also included a link to a description of some possible Eagle projects that you might consider doing that relate to this idea of community reconstitution. Okay, so just to conclude, we as a lab would love to help anyone set up a project for their community or county. We really want to emphasize the family tree is probably better than anyone can imagine, and it's getting better every day. The ability for anyone to add new information, attach sources, is really one of the key innovations of the family tree. And it's very similar to Wikipedia in that once you have millions of people adding new information, we all end up with a better family tree. We can also combine automated approaches with human volunteers to dramatically hasten the work. We believe that with a concerted effort, we could complete the US part of the tree, those 217 million people by 2022, which is when the 1950 census will be released. And so then actually this census tree could be connected right into the 1950 census and provide a fantastic experience to people looking at that record for the first time. And we believe that the same approach could be used to hasten the work in other countries. With that, I'll end. You're welcome to reach out to me with any questions or comments, but I'm thankful for your time.
All right, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope that this webinar has been a valuable use of your time. If you could just take a moment to provide your thoughts on today's experience, we'd really appreciate it. You're more than welcome to suggest ideas for future webinars. And if you need to contact us, our email is fhl_webinars@byu.edu. We hope you have a wonderful weekend, and we hope to see you next Friday.